Have you ever walked out of a meeting, left a family dinner, or hung up the phone after talking to a close friend and felt a sudden, inexplicable heaviness in your chest? Nothing explicitly terrible happened. No major argument took place. No cruel words were spoken out loud. Yet you feel as if you just ran a marathon in complete silence. You sit in your parked car for a few minutes before turning the key, just needing a moment to breathe, wondering why your body feels so tense and weary. It is a very specific kind of tired, isn't it? It isn't the physical fatigue that comes from hours of heavy physical labor, and it isn't the kind of tiredness that a single night of sleep can easily cure. It is an emotional weariness that settles deep inside your chest, making your arms feel heavy and your thoughts feel slow. You walk into your home at the end of the afternoon, drop your bag on the counter, and sit down at the kitchen table in total silence. The room around you is completely quiet, but inside your mind, everything feels overcrowded and loud. You replay the small moments of your day over and over again, searching for the exact second when your strength drained away. Was it when you softened your voice to keep someone else from getting upset? Was it when you held your breath during a tense pause in a conversation, carefully monitoring the room to make sure everyone stayed calm? Or was it simply the quiet, continuous strain of standing nearby while someone else projected their unspoken frustration onto you? So many of us walk through life carrying an invisible weight, held together by a silent promise to never make waves. We smile gently when we are expected to smile. We nod patiently while listening to endless complaints, and we quietly absorb the tension floating in the air just to keep the surrounding environment peaceful. We tell ourselves that we are simply being kind, supportive, or understanding. But beneath that gentle surface lies a heavy cost that we rarely allow ourselves to admit. You end up carrying the unspoken demands of others, the heavy sighs of people who refuse to look at their own unhappiness, and the sharp edge of friction that was never yours to fix. By the time the evening comes, you have given away every drop of your internal vitality. You feel like a well that has been completely drained, leaving you with nothing left for your own life, your own thoughts, or your own quiet rest. You might look around at other people and wonder how they navigate their days so effortlessly, or why you seem to feel every subtle shift in emotional temperature so intensely. You might even blame yourself, thinking that you are just being too sensitive, or that you should be strong enough to let things roll off your back. But your sensitivity is not a flaw. The problem isn't that you care. It is that you have been taught to prioritize everyone else's comfort above your own emotional survival. You have learned to trade your personal peace for external harmony, believing that if you can just keep everyone around you balanced, you will finally be allowed to relax. But that permission never comes from the outside. If you have ever felt that quiet, lingering exhaustion, I want to invite you to take a slow, deep breath right now. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, unclench your jaw, and give yourself permission to just sit with this space. You do not need to fix anything in this moment. You do not need to solve anyone's difficulties, make anyone feel better, or explain why you are feeling weary. This space belongs entirely to you. Recognizing this exhaustion is the very first step toward healing. It is not a sign that you are failing. It is your inner self softly trying to get your attention, reminding you that your energy is finite, precious, and worthy of protection. It is a gentle reminder that you cannot continue offering shelter to everyone else while leaving yourself exposed to every emotional storm that passes by. Before we dive into today's reflection, leave a simple affirmation in the comments below. I choose my peace, and I honor my energy today. Writing it down is a small, conscious step toward claiming the calm you deserve. Let those words be your anchor as we begin to explore how to protect your heart and remain beautifully untouched by the chaos around you. It usually starts in small, subtle ways. Someone you know enters the room carrying a dark cloud of frustration, and without thinking, you automatically absorb it. You start adjusting your voice, softening your body language, and carefully choosing your words just to manage their mood. You find yourself listening to hours of subtle complaints, or trying to fix problems that were never yours to solve. You might spend an entire evening replaying a brief conversation in your head, wondering if you said the wrong thing, or if you could have smoothed things over better. You take on their tension, their impatience, and their unexpressed friction, mistaking your empathy for an obligation. But absorbing everyone else's emotional storm doesn't save them. It only drowns you. You end up carrying heavy, invisible luggage that belonged to someone else, leaving no space or energy for your own life, your own joy, and your own peace. Have you ever stopped to look at the invisible baggage you carry into every room you enter? It is filled with emotional weight that was never stamped with your name. It holds the restless impatience of a coworker who refuses to manage their own stress. It carries the heavy, unspoken expectations of a family member who uses your kindness as a sponge for their daily discontent. It contains the sharp, defensive energy of a partner or friend who hasn't learned how to process their own pain. So they pass it to you like a warm weight they no longer want to hold. Because you have a soft heart, you accept it. You stretch your arms open wider and wider, taking on extra bags of friction, insecurity, and grief, telling yourself that if you hold enough of it, the people you care about will finally feel light and happy. But notice what happens to your posture when you walk through life carrying suitcases that belong to other people. Your posture curves inward, your breathing becomes shallow, and your steps grow heavier with every single interaction. You begin to feel a constant, simmering anxiety in the pit of your stomach, not because your own life is falling apart, but because you are trying to regulate the emotional weather of everyone around you. You walk on eggshells, constantly gauging the atmospheric pressure in every room. You ask yourself, are they upset with me? Or, what can I do to fix this tone? You become an emotional manager, working full-time shifts without pay, attempting to solve problems that were created by choices you never made. The saddest truth about this dynamic is that it doesn't actually heal the people you are trying to help. When you step in and absorb someone else's discomfort, frustration, or anger, you prevent them from feeling the natural consequences of their own internal state. You rob them of the chance to look in the mirror, to sit with their own discomfort, and to grow. Meanwhile, you deplete your own vitality down to the very last drop. You become so accustomed to holding other people's emotional noise that you lose touch with your own voice. You forget what it feels like to sit quietly in a room without anticipating the next emotional crisis you need to manage. You need to know that it is entirely possible to care about someone deeply without picking up their baggage and putting it on your back. Empathy is about offering a steady hand and a calm presence, not turning your own heart into a trash bin for someone else's unhandled stress. The moment you decide to set down the luggage that was never yours to carry, a strange and wonderful thing happens. Your hands become free. Your chest expands. You realize that you can offer support from a place of abundance rather than complete exhaustion. You are allowed to set those heavy bags down gently on the floor. You do not have to carry what isn't yours. Why do certain personalities or behaviors drain us so completely while barely registering to someone else? It happens because our emotional reactions often act as delicate mirrors, reflecting parts of ourselves that require care, understanding, or protection. When someone's subtle, sharp tone or constant need for validation throws you completely off balance, it is rarely just about that specific moment. It is touching a deep, quiet place inside you that feels responsible for keeping everything steady and everyone around you content. Carl Jung offered a profound perspective on this human dynamic when he observed, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Carl Jung. When we pause and look beneath our initial frustration, we begin to see that our extreme fatigue isn't just caused by the external pressure. It is also caused by our own internal struggle, our hesitation to speak up, our fear of disappointing others, and our reluctance to honor our personal boundaries. Think about the last time someone's mood completely derailed your day. Maybe it was a colleague who spoke to you with a slight edge in their voice, or a loved one who gave you a cold, passive, silent reaction. Notice how fast your stomach tightened. Notice how your mind immediately raced to figure out what you did wrong, or how you could smooth things over. Why does their irritation create such a violent storm inside your own heart? It is because their behavior hits an unhealed, tender spot within you, a quiet, old belief that you are only safe when everyone around you is completely happy and at peace. When you spend your life trying to maintain harmony at all costs, any sign of external conflict feels like a direct threat to your safety. You react so strongly to another person's demanding or critical energy because it reflects a rule you have held for yourself for a very long time. I must be agreeable. I must not cause friction. I must earn my place by keeping the peace. When someone comes along who breaks that rule, someone who is demanding, critical, or careless with their tone, It creates a deep internal friction within you. Part of you feels outraged that they are allowed to take up so much emotional space, while you have spent years shrinking yourself down to keep things calm. The truth is, the people who drain you the most are often highlighting the very boundaries you are afraid to set. Their sharp words hurt so deeply because you haven't yet given yourself permission to say, "That is not acceptable, and I will not participate in this." Their demanding nature exhausts you because you haven't yet allowed yourself to say, "No, I cannot help you with that today." They become a mirror showing you where you are betraying your own needs to preserve someone else's comfort. When you begin to view these exhausting interactions as a mirror, everything starts to shift. Instead of pointing all your focus outward and asking, "Why are they acting like this?" you gently turn your attention inward. You ask yourself, "What part of me is feeling threatened right now? Why am I giving their opinion or mood so much power over my peace?" You realize that while you cannot control the person holding the mirror, you have full control over how you care for what is being reflected back to you. This is where true healing begins. You stop viewing yourself as a helpless victim of other people's bad moods and start recognizing your power to protect your own heart. You realize that you don't have to absorb every piece of criticism, nor do you need to fix every bad mood that enters your space. When you heal the tender places inside yourself that fear rejection or disappointment, the mirror loses its power to shake you. Other people can be stormy, demanding, or upset, but you can remain steady, quiet, and whole. Protecting your peace begins with paying close attention to where your energy quietly drains throughout the day. It is rarely a massive crisis that exhausts us. More often, it is a series of tiny, unexamined habits. Think about how often you say yes to a social gathering or an extra favor when every quiet impulse in your mind is asking for rest. Think about how much mental space is consumed by waiting for someone else's approval, or how you rehearse hypothetical conversations in your head while making breakfast or walking to work. Consider the habit of over-explaining your personal decisions, offering endless reasons why you cannot attend an event or why you made a choice for yourself, simply because you feel guilty for prioritizing your well-being. These moments seem small on their own, but together, they slowly drain your emotional reservoir, leaving you feeling weary and depleted before your day has even properly begun. We often wait for a dramatic event to justify why we feel so completely wiped out. We tell ourselves we should only be tired if we went through a major life change, fought off an illness, or endured a massive argument. So when we haven't experienced any obvious tragedy, we feel confused and ashamed of our fatigue. But emotional energy doesn't usually pour out of us in a giant wave. It leaks slowly, droplet by droplet, through the tiny cracks in our daily boundaries that we barely pay attention to. Think about the mental energy you spend just trying to cushion the world around you. It is the moment you glance at a text message on your phone screen, feel a sharp knot of anxiety form in your chest, and immediately set the phone down. only to spend the next 2 hours mentally drafting the perfect, safest response while trying to focus on something else. It is the effort you expend maintaining a forced smile during a conversation where you feel completely unseen, laughing at jokes that feel cruel, or quietly agreeing with opinions that hurt your spirit, all because you fear the slight discomfort of standing in your truth. Consider how much vitality you lose to the habit of over-explaining. When you want to say no to an invitation, a request, or a demand on your time, do you simply say a kind, clear, "I won't be able to make it"? Or do you find yourself constructing an elaborate story? You offer 3 different excuses, outline your entire schedule, and apologize repeatedly, hoping to persuade the other person that you aren't being selfish. You do this because you are trying to buy permission to have personal limits. But every time you over-explain a basic boundary, you subtly tell your own heart that your needs are only valid if someone else signs off on them. There is also the quiet drain of mental rehearsal. You sit at your desk or lay in bed at night, practicing what you will say to someone tomorrow, trying to predict every possible reaction they might have. You script out your words, imagine their disapproving look, and mentally defend yourself against arguments that haven't even happened yet. You are living the conflict 10 times in your head before it even exists in reality, draining your nervous system before you ever step into the room. These subtle energy leaks happen because we have been conditioned to believe that keeping everyone else comfortable is our most important duty. But every time you abandon your own inner truth to appease a quiet demand from the outside, you leave a little bit of your vitality behind. You cannot keep your inner fire burning if you leave every window open to the cold wind. It is time to start noticing where those cold breezes are coming from, to gently close the windows, and to realize that guarding your energy isn't selfish. It is the very foundation of staying whole. Many caring people struggle with emotional exhaustion because they confuse empathy with emotional absorption. You might believe that being a kind, supportive person means you must feel everything the other person is feeling. That to be a good friend or family member, you have to sit inside their frustration and carry it alongside them. But there is a vital distinction between understanding someone's difficulty and taking that difficulty into your own nervous system. You can care deeply about someone's struggle without sitting inside it. You can listen attentively without letting their anxiety become your own standard of reality. True empathy offers a calm, safe presence. It does not require you to burn down your own inner house just to keep someone else warm. When you love deeply or care genuinely about the world around you, it is so easy to let the boundaries between your heart and someone else's pain blur into nothingness. You sit across from a friend who is venting about their life, or a family member who is spiraling in anxiety, and without even realizing it, your own heart begins to race. Your jaw tightens. The tension in their voice settles like a cold weight directly in your own chest. You walk away from that conversation feeling as if you were the one who endured the crisis, completely drained, foggy, and heavy. You tell yourself that this is what it means to be a loving person. That if you don't leave the interaction feeling as bruised as they are, you haven't truly cared enough. But taking on someone else's pain is not the same thing as loving them. Emotional absorption is an automatic, reactive habit where your nervous system mirrors every storm it encounters. It happens when you step into a room and instantly surrender your own emotional grounding to match the heaviest feeling in the space. You become like a sponge resting at the bottom of a pool, soaking up every drop of murky water around you until you are too heavy to lift. True empathy, on the other hand, is not a sponge. It is a lighthouse. A lighthouse stands firmly on the solid, rocky shore. It does not plunge itself into the rough, freezing ocean waves to save a ship, nor does it let the wild storm knock over its foundation. It simply stands tall, holds its internal light steady, and shines a quiet, clear beam across the dark water. The ship needs the light to be steady, grounded, and safe on the shore, not drowning in the sea alongside it. When you confuse empathy with absorption, you actually rob the other person of the very thing they need most. If someone is drowning in anxiety or despair, they do not need you to drown with them. They need you to remain a calm, unshakable anchor. They need to look at you and see that it is possible to remain steady, quiet, and peaceful, even when life feels chaotic. By maintaining your own internal peace, you give them a safe harbor to step into, a gentle reminder of what calm actually feels like. Learning to separate empathy from absorption starts with a quiet, internal shift. The next time someone brings their heavy emotional storm to your doorstep, take a deep breath and remind yourself, I can hold space for your pain without taking it into my own body. I can offer you my presence without giving you my peace. You can listen with a warm, compassionate heart while keeping your feet firmly planted on your own ground. Protecting your emotional center is not cold, distant, or selfish. It is the only way you can remain whole enough to keep shining your light for the people who truly need it. When people around you are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or dissatisfied, they often project their unresolved internal friction outward. They might offer unsolicited judgments, express constant dissatisfaction, or subtle, sharp remarks about your choices. If you do not have a firm anchor inside yourself, it is easy to accept these external comments as truth, allowing them to disturb your peace and self-worth. Understanding human psychology helps us create necessary perspective during these interactions. Reflecting on how people project their internal states, Carl Jung noted, "You are what you do, not what you'll say you'll do." Carl Jung. When someone attempts to project their frustration onto you, their behavior is a reflection of their own ongoing relationship with themselves, not a definition of who you are. When you remain clear in your own self-understanding and actions, their words simply pass by you like wind against a solid rock. You no longer feel compelled to internalize their turbulence. Think about how often you have caught yourself carrying a comment that someone dropped so carelessly into your afternoon. A casual remark about how you spend your time, a critical glance at a decision you made, or a sharp comment about your personality that left you lying awake at 2 in the morning, endlessly searching your heart for flaws. You twist yourself into knots, trying to understand why they see you that way. You wonder, am I really selfish? Am I really not doing enough? Why can't I just satisfy them? What we so often forget in those painful moments is that people rarely see us as we truly are. They see us through the colored glass of their own internal struggles, unhealed wounds, and unmet expectations. When someone is secretly carrying a deep reservoir of unaddressed bitterness, jealousy, or regret, that internal weather has to spill out somewhere. It is far easier for a person to point out a perceived flaw in your life than it is for them to turn their gaze inward and sit with their own dissatisfaction. When they cast their sharp judgments onto you, they are not describing your reality. They are giving you a tour of their own internal landscape. If you don't possess a quiet, steady clarity about who you are, you will treat every projection like an absolute truth. You will take their heavy, dark dynamic and wear it around your own neck like an ornament of shame. You will spend precious vitality trying to defend yourself, trying to prove to them that you are good, capable, and worthy of love. But you cannot convince someone to see your worth when their eyes are clouded by their own internal fog. Trying to defend your character to someone who is determined to misunderstand you is like trying to explain the warmth of the sun to someone who insists on standing in a cold, dark basement. Inner clarity is the realization that you do not need to accept every delivery that arrives at the door of your heart. When someone hands you an envelope full of their quiet resentment or harsh judgments, you are allowed to leave your hands down by your sides. You can look at their frustration with gentle understanding, recognizing that they are in pain, while refusing to adopt that pain as your identity. You can tell yourself, this belongs to them. I do not have to hold it. When you are anchored in your own truth, you realize that your character is built on your actual choices, your quiet intentions, and the integrity of your actions, not on the fluctuating opinions of people who are wrestling with their own darkness. The sharp words, the passive-aggressive sighs, and the subtle criticisms begin to lose their sting. They become nothing more than a passing breeze against a deeply rooted tree. The leaves may rustle for a brief second, but the root system remains completely unbothered, firmly planted in the quiet soil of self-respect. Setting a boundary does not require confrontation, harsh tones, or dramatic announcements. The most powerful boundaries are often the quietest ones. A boundary is simply an internal clarity about where you end and where another person begins. It is the ability to say, with quiet certainty, I am willing to offer my support, but I am not willing to lose my composure. It is choosing to step out of a repetitive, unhealthy conversation by gently changing the topic or excusing yourself to take a fresh breath of air. It is allowing someone to experience their own frustration without rushing in to fix it for them. When you establish boundaries with kindness and firmness. You teach your nervous system that your internal safety is valuable, valid, and worthy of protection. For so long, you might have believed that boundaries were built out of anger. You thought you had to reach your absolute limit, burst into tears, or speak with a cold, sharp edge in your voice just to prove that you meant what you said. But when a boundary is born out of explosive frustration, it usually leaves you feeling guilty, anxious, and dirty inside, as if you did something wrong simply by asking for space. You spend the next few hours apologizing for how you said it, quietly erasing the very limit you desperately needed to set. True boundaries do not need to be loud, aggressive, or defensive. A gentle boundary is not a wall built to punish the other person or shut them out of your life. It is a clear door with a lock that you hold the key to. It is an expression of deep self-respect that whispers, "I love myself enough to stay safe, and I respect you enough to stop pretending everything is fine when it isn't." Think about how much lighter your days would feel if you stopped trying to convince everyone to agree with your limits. You do not need a committee vote to decide that an interaction is exhausting you. You do not need to win an argument to earn the right to step away. When a conversation turns into a cycle of subtle complaints, judgment, or intense pressure, a gentle boundary allows you to simply stop participating in the storm. You can smile softly, wish them well, and step back. You don't have to raise your voice. You just have to lower your availability to chaos. Setting these limits can feel terrifying at first because your nervous system has been trained to equate peace with people-pleasing. When you first say no or step away from an exhausting dynamic, your heart might race. You might feel a heavy surge of guilt convincing you that you are being cold or uncaring. But that guilt is not proof that you made a mistake. It is just the unfamiliar feeling of choosing your own well-being over someone else's immediate demand. It is the growing pain of breaking a habit that was slowly destroying your spirit. Allowing other people to feel their own disappointment is one of the most compassionate gifts you can offer, both to them and to yourself. When you stop rushing in to fix their moods, cushion their falls, or absorb their tension, you finally treat them like capable adults who are fully responsible for their own internal lives. You step out of the way and let them meet themselves. As you practice this art, remember that an unshakable boundary lives in your actions, not in their reaction. People who are used to enjoying your lack of limits may get upset, push back, or try to guilt you into returning to your old ways. That is entirely okay. Their reaction is simply their own process of adjusting to the new, healthy landscape you are creating. You do not need to fight their reaction, nor do you need to surrender to it. You can stay calm, stay rooted in your truth, and hold your space with a quiet, loving firmness that nothing can break. To remain calm when the atmosphere around you feels tense, you need an internal anchor, a sense of grounded presence that remains steady regardless of external noise. Imagine sitting in a busy cafe where people are rushing back and forth, cups are clattering, and loud voices fill the room. You cannot control the volume of the room, but you can choose how closely you pay attention to it. You can remain focused on your warm drink, your own thoughts, and your own steady breathing. Creating an internal anchor works in exactly the same way. When conversations become intense or energy feels demanding, practice bringing your focus back to the sensation of your feet resting on the floor, the rise and fall of your chest, and the quiet truth that you are safe in this present moment. Have you ever felt like a leaf tossed around in a sudden summer storm? 1 minute you are feeling light, cheerful, and settled within yourself, and the next, a single heavy interaction completely sweeps you off your feet. A sharp comment, a heavy sigh, or a tense atmosphere in the room enters your space, and suddenly your mind is spinning, your heart is racing, and your peace vanishes as if it were never there at all. When you live without an internal anchor, your emotional state becomes entirely dependent on the weather around you. If the people in your life are pleased, you feel safe. If they are anxious, disappointed, or frustrated, you instantly lose your footing and fall into their turbulence. Building an internal anchor is about teaching your body and mind that you do not have to join every storm you witness. It is about discovering a quiet sanctuary inside your own heart, a place that remains completely still, undisturbed, and gentle, even while the world outside is rushing and shouting. Think about what happens when an ocean liner drops its heavy iron anchor deep into the seabed. Far above on the surface, the waves may crash, the wind may howl, and the water may toss back and forth. But down at the very bottom, where the anchor holds fast into the solid earth, nothing moves. The ship remains held in place, secured not by changing the sea, but by anchoring itself to something much deeper than the surface waves. You hold that exact same depth within you. When you feel the familiar tightness in your chest, when someone begins to project their stress onto you, or when a conversation starts to pull you into a dark, familiar drain, that is your signal to drop your anchor. You do not need to make a scene, and you do not need to flee the room. You simply bring all of your awareness back inside your own body. Feel the physical weight of your body pressing down into the chair beneath you. Feel the firm, unshakable support of the floor under the soles of your feet. Take a slow, quiet breath into your belly, feeling the gentle rise and fall of your ribs. You can look at the person across from you. You can hear their words with kindness, but you keep your weight resting deep down in your own center. You whisper silently to yourself, "This storm is happening around me, but it is not happening inside me. I am here. I am grounded. I am safe." The more you practice coming back to this quiet center during small, daily moments, the stronger your anchor becomes. You start to realize that you are not the chaos in the room. You are the calm witness observing it. You are not the heavy words being thrown around. You are the solid space that remains untouched after the words have drifted away. When you cultivate this grounded presence, people will begin to notice a change in you. They may come to you carrying their frantic energy expecting you to match their panic or absorb their friction, only to find that their waves break gently against your calm shores. Your steady center becomes a refuge, not just for yourself, but for anyone who is ready to step out of their own storm and join you in the quiet stillness. Real change happens when you stop fighting reality and begin accepting your needs without self-judgment. For a long time, you may have believed that if you worked harder, explained yourself better, or showed endless patience, you could change how exhausting certain dynamics felt. But true peace begins when you accept that you cannot control how others choose to act, nor can you manage their emotional maturity. You can only control your own alignment and choices. Carl Jung captured this essential truth about personal growth when he wrote, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." Carl Jung. When you stop criticizing yourself for feeling tired and stop trying to force external dynamics to change, acceptance opens up a clear path forward. You give yourself permission to step back, rest, and make choices that preserve your inner quiet. Think about how much life force you have spent fighting the plain, obvious reality of who people are. You sit in your living room or lie awake late at night, endlessly replaying painful interactions and wishing with every fiber of your being that someone would just be a little more thoughtful, a little less demanding, or a little more self-aware. You tell yourself, if I can just find the exact right combination of words to explain my pain, they will finally understand. If I show them enough love, patience, and understanding, they will stop treating me like an emotional dump. This constant, exhausting resistance to what is keeps you locked in a perpetual state of quiet suffering. You are fighting against the reality of another human being's choices, hoping that if you sacrifice enough of your own well-being, the universe will reward you by transforming them into the safe, gentle person you wish they were. But when you spend all your energy demanding that a desert yield fresh water, you don't end up changing the desert. You just die of thirst. Acceptance is the moment you finally lay down your arms in that useless, draining war. It is not an act of weakness, defeat, or cold resignation. It is the highest form of emotional freedom and wisdom you can ever offer yourself. Acceptance simply means looking at a person or a situation with complete, unvarnished honesty and saying, this is who they are right now. This is how they treat people when they feel stressed. This is the level of emotional depth and care they are currently capable of offering. When you accept reality as it is, a miraculous quiet settles over your entire body. The urgent, anxious need to fix simply dissolves into thin air. You stop arguing with reality, and in doing so, you regain all the power you had been leaking for years. You realize that while you cannot force a stormy person to become a calm sea, you can choose whether or not to sail your delicate boat into their waters. You stop waiting for them to apologize, stop expecting them to validate your boundaries, and stop looking to them for permission to protect your own heart. You also turn that same gentle acceptance inward, toward yourself. You stop punishing yourself for having limits, for feeling drained, or for needing quiet time away from certain people. You stop calling yourself too sensitive or weak just because your soul naturally recoils from constant friction and negativity. You accept that you are a sensitive, caring human being who thrives in atmospheres of peace, respect, and mutual kindness, and that there is absolute, beautiful dignity in honoring those exact needs. When you step into this deep, unshakable acceptance, the entire landscape of your life transforms. You no longer move through the world out of guilt, obligation, or desperation. You move from a place of quiet alignment and self-respect. You let people hold their own lives, their own choices, and their own consequences, while you take full, loving responsibility for your own inner peace. You step out of the storm, take a slow, deep breath, and finally allow your heart to come home to rest. Remaining unaffected by draining energy is not about becoming cold, distant, or unfeeling. It is about becoming so deeply rooted in your own self-awareness and self-respect that external storms no longer have the power to pull you off center. It is realizing that your peace is a precious sanctuary, one that you are allowed to protect every single day. As you walk back into your routine, remember that you do not owe anyone your emotional exhaustion. You are allowed to be calm. You are allowed to hold your boundaries with gentle strength. You are allowed to live a life that feels peaceful on the inside, regardless of what is happening around you. Take a slow breath. Carry this quiet clarity with you, and step forward into your day with peace. Look back at the path you have walked to reach this point. Think about all the times you shrank yourself to make room for someone else's big emotions. All the evenings you spent picking up the broken pieces of conflicts you didn't create. And all the years you believed that loving people meant letting them burn through your spirit. You carried that heavy weight because you believed it was your duty, because your heart was big and soft, and because nobody ever pulled you aside to tell you that your own peace mattered just as much as anyone else's. But today, something inside you is quietly settling into place. You are beginning to understand that true strength doesn't look like a shield built out of bitterness or a wall built out of anger. True strength looks like a quiet, open room inside your chest where the air is still, clear, and calm. It is the deep realization that you can stand in the middle of a crowded, noisy, or tense world, look around with genuine compassion, and still choose not to let the noise inside your own heart. Stepping into peaceful presence means you stop apologizing for taking up emotional space. It means when you feel the first whisper of exhaustion, you don't wait for permission to rest. You simply step back, close your eyes, and allow yourself to recharge. It means you no longer measure your worth by how useful, agreeable, or endlessly available you are to the people around you. You begin to value yourself simply because you are here, breathing, living, and carrying a soft light that deserves to be tended to with love. Imagine what your life looks like when you live from this place of grounded peace. You enter conversations without the desperate urge to defend yourself or fix the other person's mood. You listen with warm eyes, offer a kind word where you can, And when the interaction ends, you walk away completely whole, leaving their heavy baggage where it belongs. You drive home with the radio off, feeling a gentle, steady warmth in your chest instead of that familiar, hollow ache. You sleep deeply through the night, no longer rehearsing tomorrow's battles or regretting yesterday's words, because you know that whatever comes tomorrow, your anchor will hold. You are not changing who you are at your core. You are not losing your kindness, your empathy, or your capacity to love deeply. In fact, you are protecting those very gifts so they can bloom in safety. By guarding your peace, you ensure that the love you offer to the world comes from a fresh, bubbling spring, rather than a dry, exhausted well. As you close this chapter and step back into your daily rhythm, carry this soft truth in your heart, like a quiet promise to yourself. Your energy is sacred. Your peace is a home you are allowed to live in comfortably every single hour of the day. You do not need to fight for your right to be quiet, to be calm, and to be whole. Breathe out the tension you have been holding on to for so long. Feel the solid earth beneath your feet, and step gracefully into the quiet beauty of your own peaceful presence. We have walked together through 10 deep reflections, uncovering the quiet ways our energy drains away and learning how to reclaim our inner peace. But learning to remain calm and unaffected isn't a goal you reach just once. It is a gentle, daily practice of coming home to yourself. Leave a final affirmation in the comments below. I am grounded in my peace, and my energy belongs to me.